whether it's a single dad or just a guy who's got something else going on, we're a little bit more reluctant to actually admit that we need the help. Not that the support system isn't there, but it's just, we kind of have been trained and raised to believe it's a sign of weakness.
Do you think men are more, how should I put this, more judgmental of other men?
As men, we kind of understand that pressure. So we're usually, in my experience, we're a little bit more understanding when a guy's going through some stuff and he's having a breakdown. Whereas a lot of times women don't really give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think it's their fault. I think part of it is because of that idea that the man is supposed to be, you're supposed to be my rock. You know, if you're breaking down, then what am I going to do? When I was a police officer, I had to go on those calls and there's a guy losing his mind. And, you know, and then you finally get over and you talk to him and calm him down. And it's like, my wife left me, she for another guy, she took my kid, and now I can't go home because they locked the doors, they changed the lock. Okay, that's really valid, but you still can't scream in the middle of this alleyway that trash can. Okay,
At 2 o'clock in the morning.
You're scaring people.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Counterpunch. Today, we are going to be talking about support systems, and I feel very fortunate to have mine here with me on this podcast, the beautiful Shalene Skinner.
Hi. Well, thanks. You're definitely part of mine as well. And that segues into our guest. Mr. Jerry Deering is going to give us kind of his insight into support system and what that looks like. And we'll just have a good little chat this evening. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, I think we're doing pretty well.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Doing good.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jerry, just to get us going, what do you think your general picture of like your support system looks like?
In general, it would be my immediate family. I don't live around them right now, so it's a little different than maybe what some people's are, but I've moved around quite a bit in my lifetime. But my mother, especially, my brother and my sister, even though we're not near each other, you know, we're always there to rely on each other and help each other out and stuff, which has been a huge help over the years. Like I said, because I've moved around a lot, I've been a lot of places and done a lot of things. And so there's been a lot of times where I've needed, you know, some people to not only just provide support, but also just kind of like keep you grounded and anchored a little bit so you don't get a little too caught up in whatever is going on. So,
boy, isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, do you think that men in general are more reluctant to seek or utilize a support system?
well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think, you know, as a society, I guess, and when I go that route with it, I mean, a lot of men are afraid to reach out or to say that they need help for something. I do feel like a lot of men, I won't even say most, but a lot of them who, you know, we have our support system, but it's more, we're kind of keeping it a little close to the vest, you know, where it just seems more acceptable for, you know, a woman to say, hey, I'm going through this, I need something. And people are like, oh, what do you need? You know, how do you need help? But, and most people don't think twice about that. You know, if you see a single mom, for example, who's needing assistance or whatever, most people are going to do whatever they can to help her out, even no matter how big or small it is. But when it's a guy, whether it's a single dad or just a guy who's got something else going on, we're a little bit more reluctant to actually admit that we need the help. Not that the support system isn't there, but it's just, we kind of have been trained and raised to believe it's a sign of weakness. When in reality, it's not. It's a sign of strength, but it takes a long time to get there. I mean, I'm 42 years old, and it took me pretty much all of 42 years to figure out, you know what, it's okay. And asking for help is a good thing. And it means that you're a strong enough person to do that, and you're secure enough in yourself to say, hey, I do need help. And I'm not too proud to admit that. So
That's really good stuff. And you clued into something that is so spot on, and I hadn't really realized, but yeah, it is almost so normal to see, particularly single moms, like the example you gave, but I can't remember maybe if I've ever seen a single dad asking for help.
Yeah.
I mean, not
don't
one.
think I have either.
That doesn't mean that you guys are just magically well off and don't need any help or superior to women. I think you really clued into something that I never even really paid attention to.
I wonder
Yeah, I think
if
there was a small glitch in there, so I didn't hear everything. I think I got the gist of what you were saying, but I
Okay.
didn't hear every word of it. But I think I got the gist of what you were saying there.
Yeah, basically that I'd never seen a single dad ask for help, but I frequently see single moms ask for help.
Yeah, well, and you know, I'm having been a single dad. I mean, we do, but again, we don't broadcast it.
Okay.
I would say silent supporters. You know, most of us
Okay.
are fortunate enough to have that. Um, you know, as guys, we kind of know and we kind of see, hey, you know what, I'm going to reach out and see if he needs help, but you don't put it out there. You're not going to see it posted on social media. You know, hey, my car broke down. Can anybody give me a ride? You're not going to see a guy posting that. It doesn't mean we don't need the help, and it doesn't mean we don't ask for it, but we don't want everybody to know that we needed it. You know, and even the person who does end up helping us, it's kind of like this unspoken rule, like, hey, don't tell everybody. You know, like I don't really want people in my business. You know, I want everybody to think that I got this. You know, even when I don't.
Okay. This is good stuff. Like this is stuff I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah.
You guys have like your underground support network. like
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say underground, but yeah, I mean, and I know guys who don't have that, and so,
yeah.
and it's really hard on them. You know, it really, really is hard. As a
Okay.
guy, that's why you see a lot of men eventually they get burned out just with life in general. And then it affects every other aspect of their life, their work, their relationships, whether it be with their kids or their wives or their, you know, just friends. You get burned out and you just don't have anything left because you are trying to do it alone. So when you don't have that support system, I mean, it's, you know, people talk about toxic masculinity, you know what I mean? And it's that idea that I have to be tough all the time and I have to be everything for everybody else, but I'm the rock, you know, and I'm not going to ask for help. Nobody needs help, but that wears you down. And if you don't have a support system there, you know, that's why, I don't know how deep you guys want to get into this, but that's why you know, the suicide rate for men is way higher because you get to a point where it's like, if I can't do it, then I've got nothing else. I don't know what else to do. So fortunately, I have had a good support system, and most of the guys that I know have one too. You know, like I said, even if they don't tell everybody about it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
And
Yeah.
you said when you were younger, though, you weren't so open to others and allowing them to be there to support you. So, what were some steps that you took to start building and forming those kinds of relationships?
Well, I mean, gosh, how long is this going to be? I mean, yeah, well, because you know, I mentioned the whole toxic masculinity thing, and I know that's kind of a buzzword and a trigger word for some people, but I mean, I was raised in a small town in Oklahoma, and it was, you know, in the 80s, and if you had a problem with somebody, you fought on the playground, and then afterwards you were friends again. I mean, everything was just very basic and simple, and boys don't cry and all of that kind of thing. And so I grew up like that. But like I said previously, you know, I've moved around a lot. I live in Kansas City now. I've lived in LA before. Very briefly lived in Colorado for a while. So I've gotten to get out of that little fishbowl that I was in, that really small town, you know, boys don't cry mindset, and I'd kind of gotten to see that, you know, it's not really like that. And so just over the course of my life, I've realized that, you know what, it is okay to be upset. It is okay to express your emotions. It is okay to talk about your feelings. People want you to do that.
Mhm.
Because it's far better than the alternative, which is to hold it inside and then just be that guy that's quiet all the time until you explode. And then everybody's just like, oh, he's an angry guy. Well, no, he's just never had an outlet, never felt like he had one. But it took me a long time to get there before I realized that that's what you need to do. And, you know, again, I don't know how long you want to go on that, but I mean, it really, when I said it took me 42 years to get here, I mean, it really took every minute of that, you know. I've been through a lot of things that I've had to humble myself and ask for help because there wasn't anything else that I could do. And if I was just a single guy with no responsibilities, it would be easy to just kind of turn into a hermit and not ask for any help and just do my own thing and close the world off. But, I had small children, well, they're in high school now, my boys are, but when they were little, I couldn't just do that. I mean, they were relying on me. And if I wasn't able to even take care of myself, then I certainly wasn't going to be able to take care of them. So I kind of got put in a situation where I just had to humble myself and lean on people that I didn't know if I could lean on them until all of a sudden they showed me that I could. So
do you think then being a parent kind of helped steer you to use that support system? Do you think that might have been different if you weren't a father? You might have been more reluctant, or?
Well, for me personally, yes.
Yeah.
And I say it that way because I know that, for me in my life, that's what kind of got me going in that direction. But I also know that, there's a lot of people that have horror stories about their parents who went through that kind of stuff and they didn't do that and they just spiraled and it affected the kids negatively. Fortunately, that's not how I went with it. I was able to, use my kids as, I shouldn't say use my kids, but look at them and go, you know what? They're more important than my pride. And that took a lot to do that. And not everybody does that, So for me, that worked. But I'm not saying, oh, if you're down in the dumps, go have a kid and you'll all of a sudden have a reason.
No, yeah. But for this particular, conversation, they were kind of your motivation. Like, hey, and you seem very self-aware of the situation. Yeah. Yeah.
Counterpunch podcast, inspiring baby making.
Good stuff here.
I'm following couture, so I gotta,
Right. Good stuff here. Let's see. I know, I'm sorry, so we'll have a break here, obviously, when we edit. So I think you touched on this a lot.
Yeah, we did.
On the benefits for a man to utilize a support system. You definitely talked about some of the repercussions of not having an adequate support system, which can be critical. Absolutely. Yeah.
So who's the most important person within your support system? Who is your go-to person when you need that support?
It does kind of depend on the situation. I would say probably just throughout my life, the most person I've gone to the most would be my mother. But, she was a single mom and, she's going to have her worldview and the problems that I might be dealing with or the issues that are coming up. She may not always be the best person. She's the one I go to the most often. But I also have a friend of mine who lives here in Kansas City now. We actually grew up, actually two friends because they married each other. And we grew up in that little town in Oklahoma I was telling you about. And they moved here to Kansas City a few years ago. We had been apart for years, but it was one of those kind of friendships where you can be apart forever and then it's like you never left. And so they've been a big help too. Like when it's something that, you don't want to run to your mom about, like they've been there and because, they're my age and we have a lot of similar experiences. And so they can relate to a lot of the things that I might be talking about. And even if they can't actually relate to them, they're a little bit more able to kind of, at least try to put themselves in my shoes. I'm always going to be her son. So she's always going to look at it like mom. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There's definitely certain conversations that are not for mothers. So
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you feel like, I'm curious about your opinion, since you were military, I'm curious about what military and like support system, how that is. We obviously see a really sharp increase, in vets and their mental health and stuff like that and consequences of that. And do you feel like, I don't know, do you feel like military kind of changed your outlook on a support system in a positive or negative light? Do you think that makes, men feel like they have to be more manly and less apt to reach out? Or are there adequate resources for vets? Just kind of get an opinion, on that.
Well, so there's two sides to that coin. Like when you're in the military and you're in a unit, whether it's your training unit or whether it's the unit you get assigned to permanently, and those are the guys you go to war with, you build a rapport with them. And you always hear people talk about brother. They always refer to each other as brothers. There's a reason. Is because you go through that kind of stuff with people, and there's going to be a bond there. Even if when you first meet him, you really don't actually like this guy. At the end of the day, like I'll go to war with him, literally, because we may not get along, like our personalities may clash, but I'm going to go through some things and he's going to go through some things that nobody else is going to understand, no matter how much they try. So you have that kind of bond, and the ones that are lucky, even after they get out, they'll keep those friendships and they'll keep those relationships. So there is that side of it. But the other side, I think maybe what you're talking about is like the government taking care of us, like the VA and things like that.
Yeah.
And my experiences with the VA have not been negative. I haven't had a lot of experience with them because, just like a lot of people, I didn't want to go there when I got out, because you hear it all. You hear all the horror stories, and things used to be really bad with it. I finally, later in life, like not even that long ago, started going there and reaching out. And I think, the resources are there, but I can understand why some people are afraid to take advantage of them, especially if you're still in, because, we talked about, support systems. Part of that is like counseling and just being able to talk to somebody. And a lot of people, I still run into people that are too afraid to go to the VA, especially if they're still in, or if they want to do another job where they're going to have a security clearance. They're afraid if they go there and they say, hey, I'm dealing with PTSD, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with depression, I'm dealing with that, substance abuse, whatever it is, that's going to go in their permanent file, and then they're going to get basically punished for being honest, and that's a real fear. But what I was able to find through the VA, it's not, they're kind of tied to them. It's difficult to explain, but basically they're together but separate. But there's vet centers out there, and I go to one that's downtown, and they're still part of that whole government like entity that's supposed to take care of you, but their whole purpose, and somebody's going to correct me here if I'm wrong, but if I remember right, the vet centers were actually started by Vietnam veterans coming back because of exactly what I just said. They needed help, but they didn't want to be punished for asking for it. And so they kind of created these vet centers where you can go and you can talk to counselors and you can get help that way. And they don't tell anybody anything, like at all. It's totally confidential. It does not go into your permanent file. It's not going to be, your employer is not going to find out about it. You're not going to lose rank. They're not going to demote you. They're not going to, kick you out of the military. None of that. It's there specifically to help you and try to insulate, any repercussions of you talking. The whole point is, that you hear the whole 22 a day, the veteran suicides. We want to drive that down. And so they're really a good resource out there to help people. And if there's anything else you need besides counseling, then they've got a lot of resources for that. They have group therapy and stuff like that. I haven't gone to that, but I know it's there. So yeah, I mean, it's a really long answer to your question, but the support system that you get from your fellow soldiers is a lot different than the support that you're going to get when you come back home, and then you're relying on the government to take care of you. That having been said, it is getting better. It used to be the horror stories of the VA. Now it's getting better, and the resources are there, and people just got to use them. One of the things I've noticed is a lot of people don't know about them. They're afraid to go because there's that stigma. But if you just go ask, get over that hump and go ask, the help is there.
I love that. Yeah. I use that analogy in the book where I'm like, what good is the world's greatest cut man? You're in the ring and bleeding and you won't use the cut man.
Mm-hmm.
He's no good to you. So yeah, the system and the support system can be right there. But if you're not utilizing it, it's not going to do you any good. So that's a big part of that.
Yeah. And I think going back to what you said about, our people who are serving, how they form a brotherhood. I think that when I think of that, I think of how that speaks to how important relationships are in our lives, where, these men and women are in combat zones and horrific conditions, yet what they care about is the person standing next to them and that they'll do it again for the person standing next to them. And I think that really speaks volumes of how we all need to be connected with one another.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I wanted to, yeah, kind of piggyback on what you were saying, kind of in the transition of even the VA is a good example, but we've got a guest that'll be on here pretty soon, and he's actually, they've just recently come together as a member of the Calm app, but they've come together, these like three men, and created an app called Mettle, Mettle, though pronounced Metal, and it is the first and only mental health fitness app just for men. And it's a free app, and I think this is phenomenal. And seeing stuff like that, and what you just talked about the VA, do you kind of see, and even you saying this came later in life for you for the support system? Do you see, hopefully, maybe for your boys or their boys, a transition happening where, for men and support system particularly being more, out there, more accepted?
I just want to make sure I understood your question. Do I see a trend going in the right direction? Okay. I think I do. Like I said, my boys are in high school. My oldest one is going to graduate here in about a month or two. And they, not only are they don't really seem like they're too worried about asking for help. There's still that, I don't want to talk about it thing, just like everybody goes through that. Nobody just wants to go spill their guts to anybody, but they seemed a lot more willing to do it than I was at their age by far. I think part of that is just because, we are, I think it's slow going, but I think we are wearing out, or at least wearing down that stigma that, boys don't cry and, all of that stuff. I think just seeing them and their friends, they seem more at least open to the idea. Now, whether or not they do it, is an individual basis, but I don't really see a whole lot of, what I would have gone through, in the early 90s. If I said, hey, I need to go talk to a counselor, I would have got picked on and made fun of. Their group of friends wouldn't do that, and I know that's anecdotal, but my nephews and nieces that are in other states, it seems to be the same for them. So I'm hoping that that's a trend that's picking up.
I hope so too. Yeah. I think there is kind of a shift, a focus, and trying to break down the stigma a little bit.
I do. And who do you think men are more, how should I put this, more judgmental of other men rather than women, of their other men's vulnerability?
Well, I just want to make sure that I understand your question. Are you asking if I think men are more judgmental of men, or are women more judgmental of men?